Welcome to the Slightly New Being Bookish, where you're going to get 2 book reviews for the price of 1. Yep, it's an absolute bargain. I'm sure you know that I don't just read 1 book a fortnight, though over the last few weeks this has certainly been a little bit closer to the truth than I would like. So I want to talk about 2 books rather than 1. Does this mean that I'm going to give you any less? Absolutely not. The first review is going to be as detailed as it ever was, without giving any major plot spoilers away. I'm just going to be adding a second, shorter review into the mix. A book, in this case, that probably doesn't achieve as much of the greater heights as some could, sadly. Anyway, less of that. Let's get on with the chunky review for the fortnight. This week, I am visiting the world of Calandra, trying to discover the secrets behind the deadly Lyssa spreading through the realm of Tura, decimating villages throughout the country as violent creatures invade and attack defenseless people, and following the unprepared princess of Quentis as she is married off to a silent prince and dragged into an unexpected battle. At least that's where everything starts with Devney Perry's fantasy debut, Shield of Sparrows. I'm Ray, an unapologetic bookworm, introvert, self-confessed hermit, and long-time depression sufferer. This is my quiet space to share thoughts as I make my way through an ever-growing, eternally growing to-be-read pile. Join me as I explore stories 1 book at a time, or in this case 2, with 100% honest and completely spoiler-free reviews. This book is one I ordered the moment I saw it come up on the Waterstones app. Not only is the special edition absolutely beautiful, but I had seen so many lucky ARC readers talking about the novel and how refreshing and well written it was. The closer it got to the publication date, the more FOMO I felt as readers in the US and those who had been lucky enough to get an ARC started to talk about how much they'd enjoyed it. The book arrived, I opened it up and was relieved that I was just heading into a 6-day weekend. Yay, work holiday! Welcome to my world and enjoy the stay. The gods sent monsters to the 5 kingdoms to remind mortals they must kneel. I've spent my life kneeling to their will and to my father's. As a princess, my only duty is to wear the crown and obey the king. I was never meant to rule, never meant to fight, and I was never supposed to be the daughter who sealed an ancient treaty with her own blood. But that changed the fateful day I stepped into my father's throne room, the day a legendary monster hunter sailed to our shores, the day a prince ruined my life. Now I'm crossing treacherous lands beside a warrior who despises me as much as I despise him, bound to a future I didn't choose and a husband I barely know. Everyone wants me to be something I'm not, a queen, a spy, a sacrifice. But what if I refuse the role chosen for me? What if I made my own rules? What if there's power in being underestimated? And what if, for the first time, I reached for it? In the ancient kingdom of Quentis, Princess Odessa Cross is a royal in name only. She is King Renard, the brutal Golden King's oldest, though most of her existence is as a grey ghost in the palace. Her mother died when Odessa was young, and all evidence of her existence has been removed, partly due to the tales of Renard's heartbreak, and partly to reassure his second wife of her place in the kingdom. Odessa has no memories of her mother, and she has been left feeling as though she doesn't belong. Her stepmother, Queen Margot, tolerates her presence, but barely, as she has no purpose, and having given her husband 2 children herself, she doesn't want to draw attention to his forgotten daughter. Her father offers her no warmth, no encouragement, and certainly no affection. Her sister May, younger, more vicious, and dazzling, has been raised for greatness, trained in diplomacy, linguistics, and espionage, and promised in marriage to the Turan prince to seal a strategic alliance. Odessa, as the oldest child, yet not the heir to the throne, has been betrothed to General Banner, a cold, pragmatic match designed to appease the military. She knows that he has no feelings for her. The information that he has a beloved in the capital has not escaped her notice. She believes this quiet, invisible path is the one her life will follow forever, despite her lifelong longing for freedom and so much more. That assumption is torn apart in a single afternoon. As part of the formal ceremony to bind Quentis and Tura through the Shield of Sparrows treaty, Prince Xavier Wolfe arrives alongside his infamous protector, a silent, towering figure known only as the Guardian. Xavier is a handsome man who says little, but he is renowned for his success as a hunter. When the moment comes to claim May as his bride, the Guardian speaks on the prince's behalf and invokes the ancient chain of sevens, a sacred right earned by slaying 7 marrow eels. Instead of May, they demand Odessa. Confusion sweeps the court. No one, least of all Odessa, can comprehend what is happening. May was prepared for this. Odessa was not. But the ritual is old and binding, and the decision cannot be overturned. Odessa is married to Xavier by blood-sealed magic that very night. After the ceremony, King Renard finally acknowledges his oldest daughter, but not with praise or love. Instead, he gives her a mission. May had been trained for far more than diplomacy. She was meant to infiltrate Tura and kill the Guardian. Now that burden is Odessa's. She is to observe, report, and, if she finds the chance, end him. The next morning, Odessa leaves her homeland behind, accompanied only by her 2 maids, Jocelyn and Brielle. The voyage is long and tense. Xavier rarely speaks, maintaining the aloof silence that seems to define him, and the Guardian, cold, unreadable, and physically formidable, never lets her out of his sight. The sea voyage becomes deadly when a marrow eel attacks the ship. Odessa is thrown overboard and nearly dies. She saves herself through sheer determination, but it is the Guardian who pulls her back from the edge of death. When she demands to be armed, understandably, seriously, citing the danger, she is refused. Xavier, in a hushed conversation she overhears, expresses concerns that she is there to kill the Guardian and should therefore not be trusted with a weapon. This betrayal stings deeply. Her journey to a new kingdom was never going to be easy, and she knew that. But already she sees she has no allies here. Even Jocelyn and Brielle have maintained their distance, refusing to call her by her name and deferring to her position as a princess in both realms as a reason to decline any offers of friendship. Their arrival in Tura brings even more disillusionment. She is not taken to the capital as she hoped, because the last thing she wants is to spend months searching for the city her father demands she discover. Instead, she is rerouted to Triau, a town suspended high in the trees. It sounds absolutely stunning, to be fair, where homes perch on platforms and rope bridges span the canopy. Though beautiful in its own strange way, Odessa sees Triau for what it is, another form of exile. Xavier has made it clear she is not welcome in the heart of the kingdom. Her marriage is shambolic and her presence inconvenient. Having been informed that she is not trusted and therefore Triau is to be her home until that position changes, Odessa attempts to maintain some element of control over her circumstances. With nowhere else to turn, she accepts the Guardian's rather reluctant offer to train her in combat. His methods are punishing. He pushes her beyond her limits, never withholding criticism or kindness. Their dynamic is fraught. He is dismissive, sharp-tongued, and often infuriating. But then, to be fair, she does ask a heck of a lot of questions. Yet, beneath the surface, there is something else, a flicker of curiosity, perhaps respect. He never calls her by her name, only my queen. At first, Odessa takes it as mockery, another way to remind her of a role she did not choose, but the title comes with consistency, with weight, and eventually with something that resembles care. Even when she is furious with him, and she often is, it's mostly frustration, she finds herself listening when he speaks, watching him as he watches her. Their interactions shift slowly from antagonism to something less easily defined. In Trial, Odessa also finds moments of quiet. The small library becomes her refuge, and she forges a cautious relationship with Kathleen, the local librarian. With Kathleen's subtle guidance, Odessa starts to learn more about the kingdom, its history, and the mysteries of Lissa, though the stories of this disease are confused and concerning. However, when King Ramsay, Xavier's father, arrives in the town, Odessa is ordered to hide, and she watches as the soldiers on his command destroy the library and any other books that they discover, including Odessa's personal collection. It is a brutal reminder that in Tura, knowledge is power, and power is tightly controlled. Training continues, and Ransom, as the Guardian is eventually revealed to be named, remains distant, though their relationship continues to deepen in complexity. He is not warm, but he is present, and his insistence on calling her my queen begins to sound less like an obligation and more like a private vow. To be honest, in my head, it sounded absolutely gorgeously romantic, and I wouldn't have minded someone calling me that. Tilia, one of the Guardian's female warriors, joins the training when he is unable to. She's a strong, competent fighter and becomes a quiet source of support, especially when the Guardian's criticisms are at their harshest. She pushes Odessa to improve without belittling how far she has already become. Her stamina was apparently appalling, despite the fact that she is an eager swimmer. Together they form a kind of rhythm, not exactly camaraderie, but something resembling solidarity. And then there's Evangeline, or Evie. The first time Odessa sees her, the girl runs straight into Xavier's arms and calls him Papa. At first, stunned, Odessa slowly learns the truth. Evie is Xavier's daughter, a child kept secret from the court for understandable reasons. As a princess, her position is dangerous, and if King Ramsay ever discovered her existence, her freedoms would be curtailed, and her life, as she knows it, would be over. Her mother died in childbirth, and despite the secrecy around her existence, Evie is full of life and openness. She accepts Odessa's affection readily, responding with warmth and trust. Odessa, who has rarely had anyone look at her without expectation or a modicum of resentment, is equally overwhelmed by the relationship that builds. In Evangeline's presence, she feels seen, needed, and loved, 3 things she has never experienced before. Though her relationship with the child blossoms, Odessa's frustrations with Xavier only deepen. He rarely speaks unless forced. His silence isn't exactly passive, it's more pointed and deliberate. She suspects that there is more to him than he shows her, and more to this marriage arrangement than anyone will admit or acknowledge, but he never provides her with any information. His reserve is very similar to the manner that her own father presents her with. She is again surrounded by people who speak in decisions rather than actually having a conversation. And she is as isolated, or she realizes that she is as isolated in Tura as she was when she was at home. Eventually, Odessa ventures into the next town on her own, which is a bit daft. Her moment of rebellion, though, is very short-lived because Ransom tracks her down. He is furious and coldly protective. That night he sleeps in her room, not beside her, but nearby, a silent barrier between her and the world. In the morning, the city is attacked by Lissa-infected animals. Odessa doesn't hide, though. She fights. When the chaos ends, she has a chance to kill Ransom, but hesitates. He is showing her kindness and consideration to things that she hasn't experienced in a very long time. Not only that, but for some reason she simply can't bring herself to hurt him. It's a moment neither of them speaks about, but it changes everything between them. More attacks follow. During one, Odessa saves several children, risking her own life to protect them. Ransom's gratitude is quiet but unmistakable. Each time they travel, Odessa sees more of this disease infecting Tura. The blood of the infected animals is green. The infection spreads, but its source is unknown. It's at this moment she realizes how dangerous these secrets that are being kept are to her own safety, but also to the safety of the people that she has grown to care about. Though she knows she is married to Xavier, his absence, more like, and the Guardian's constant presence becomes something of a paradox. As much as she denies it to herself, she is slowly growing more attracted to Ransom. With every sarcastic comment and every unexpected kindness, things are changing between them. She tells herself off pretty constantly, tells her he is not for her. But there is no denying she has a closer bond with this man who seems to be so confusing than she has with the one she apparently married. Ransom is her captor and her protector, her rival, and something of a partner. He's also her assassin, her shield, and her target. And still, Xavier remains frustratingly quiet. Odessa's world is full of pieces that don't fit. A husband who barely looks at her, a protector who might be the enemy or something maybe closer to a friend, a child who brings her joy, a disease that threatens the safety of everyone around her, a kingdom built on lies and silences. She has no idea where her place is in all of this. She just knows she's no longer happy to just stand by and let everything happen around her. She was never born to be the sparrow. That was her sister's role. But the chain around her wrist binds her to a role that is so much more complicated and perhaps a great deal more powerful than anyone ever suspected it could have been. I know I say this every time, and you are probably absolutely sick to the back teeth of hearing me say it, but I am not here to influence you into buying a book or not buying a book, whatever my own personal opinion of it may be. I will admit that I have proved to be something of a book purchase enabler in my friend group. However, that's very different than sitting here and telling a lot of people who listen to me, you have to buy this book because I liked it. Everybody has very different reviews. I know that every single reader is different, and this is never more apparent than when I look at reviews for the podcast and end up going down something of a rabbit hole. Sometimes I'll find that the person who gave a book I enjoyed just 1 star in their review turns out to love books that I have enjoyed and have pride of place on my bookshelves, while others who gave a much loved book 5 stars may despise everything else I adore. And yeah, this is going to sound really weird, but I have to be honest here. Sometimes I will read these reviews and look at them and I'll say, oh, they liked that book. I wonder what else they liked that I enjoyed. And I'll go through their back record and see that a lot of the books that I really struggled with, especially Taylor Jenkins Reid, who is an author I have tried to read repeatedly, they'll rate all of her books 5 stars, and I think I've given them like 2.5. Sorry to anybody who absolutely loves them. They just were not the style of writing that I happen to enjoy. In every episode, I try and provide a balanced perspective. Honestly, I do. Which is the reason why I often spend a considerable amount of time reading through reviews from other readers across multiple platforms. Everything from Fable to Storygraph to Amazon to Goodreads and beyond. Personal blogs are another great source. Though by this point, I have to be honest, my personal opinion has already been formed because I've read the book at this stage. That doesn't mean I should just say, I think this book is amazing, read it. Or, I think this book stinks to high heaven, don't bother. and leave it at that. What I love, others may find awful, and what I dislike could well end up being on your best book of all time list. So now I've given you a summary of the main plot without spoilers. I hope. So many moments I was sitting there going, does this spoil something? No, it doesn't. Move on. Let's take a look at some reviews from other readers. Anna really didn't warm to the book, disliking the characters, the format, and the writing. She gave the book 1 star and said, "Started off decent, and I thought, okay, maybe she's got something here. But then the world building said, I'm going to head out, and never came back. Vague forests, zero depth, a fantasy with no world. Odessa asked so many questions. She knew nothing. My 8th grade science teacher always said there's no such thing as too many questions. But honestly, he lied. Honestly, how she survived this long? The real mystery of the book. And Ransom. What? Why? Who? How? Fantasy authors, bring back Ben or good old John, please. And the romance. Listen, at best, cringe. At worst, deeply uncomfortable given the premise. No chemistry, no tension, just a dude named Ransom, a girl who knew nothing, and forced intimacy. Now that I think about it, yeah, it kinda adds up. Good concept. Monsters, sister drama, enemies to lovers, but it mostly feels like wandering aimlessly through a foggy forest with no map, too many characters to keep track of, and zero world building to ground you. This book owes me my time, my sanity, and a refund on Ransom. Like, seriously, who names a dude that? With all due respect to any Ransom out there. Wasn't Chris Evans' character in Knives Out called Ransom Drysdale? Without bringing my views into it at this moment, I can't critique the review. And being honest, a review is a personal opinion, and you can't tell someone what they think about something as subjective as art is wrong. However, looking through her shelves, I can see we have nothing in common as readers. She gave Divine Rivals, a book that legitimately had zero world building effort in it, a 5-star rating. So I am personally going to take this review with a pinch of salt and move on. I always include a 1-star review because I do think that anyone going into the reading of a book who looks at reviews for guidance when choosing what they're reading should take a look at both ends of the spectrum. Interestingly, there are 237 written 1-star reviews of Shield of Sparrows, and on the first Goodreads page, the vast majority of those are from readers who DNF'd the book before they were 50% of the way through it. On Goodreads, the overall rating for the book is 4.45, and on Storygraph, it's only fractionally lower at 4.41. Shield of Sparrows came out in May this year in the US, and in the UK, it was released at the beginning of July, so as I record this only a few days ago. This was the first release from Red Tower Books in the UK, a popular romantasy and fantasy publisher in the US that has the rights to books including Fourth Wing and The Games Gods Play. It's going to be interesting to see how this new brand will succeed now that it's over here, especially as Fourth Wing has a publisher in the UK that is very different. It's with Pietkus, I believe. At the moment, the book has 102,051 ratings and 17,236 full reviews on Goodreads. And over on Storygraph, it has 9,814 reviews. This is incredible to me, especially as I witnessed the number of reviews jump by more than 2,000 literally overnight. And by literally, I really do mean literally. I was on the page yesterday evening when I went to bed, and this morning when I refreshed it, the count was over 2,000 higher. By the time this episode goes live, I have no doubt the count will be far more than 102,000. Kendall gave the book 5 stars, having received a physical arc from the publisher. The story managed to pull her from a slump. We've all been there, and she felt it deserved top ratings purely because of that. She said,
"My favourite book of 2025 so far, the romantasy I've been waiting for to get me out of my fantasy slump. What to expect? Enemies to lovers, forced proximity stroke arranged marriage, slow burn, witty banter, magic and monsters but in a cool creature way, major cliffhanger. This book has it all: tension, banter, mystery, whimsical setting, magic creatures, and a cliffhanger that has me dying for book two. If you're looking to get into the fantasy romance genre, this would be a wonderful starting place, as the world building is very approachable and given to the reader on what I refer to as a need to know basis. If you're already a fan and love Sarah J. Maas books or the Empyrean series, read this immediately. I am truly obsessed with the setting of this book. From ocean voyage to the forest, I couldn't dream up a more ideal and whimsical fantasy setting. This reminded me of some of what I loved in the Throne of Glass series. The tension, banter, and slow burn between the main characters is perfection. Not going to say too much here as to not spoil, but let's just say I'm a big fan of the MMC and Odessa. Devney's writing style is so captivating and keeps you needing to know what happens next. This was my first book by her, and I'll now be making my way through her backlog until book two is in my hands.
right, now that I've mentioned what everyone else is saying, here's what I really think about Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. No spoilers, just 100% honesty. Did I like the book? Before I knew more about this book than that the cover on Waterstones was really pretty, I wanted to read it. I had no idea what it was going to be about. In fact, reading the précis, you still don't get too much of an idea of the plot, to be fair. I ordered it back in March this year after a post on Instagram. At this point, the reviews were rather sparse, with a few people posting about it having read the NetGalley arc. I have to be honest, I like going in pretty blind. That way I can truly judge the book on its own merit rather than having massive expectations. Of course, due to the fact that this was going to be the first book printed by a new Penguin imprint in the UK, the book was released 2 months later over here than in the US. So my Instagram feed was full of people gushing about how amazing it was. And that's when the pressure really started building for this book to be incredible. Every review I saw was declaring the book amazing, the best thing I've ever read, and so fantastic. I had to read it. Am I easily influenced? I don't really think so, unless I trust the person who is doing the influencing. I'm not easily led. If I see a ton of influencers I've never followed or engaged with telling me that a book or a product must be read or used to be believed, I am not going to do more than check out the book or product and decide if I want it. If, however, I see someone I have engaged with, I know that I enjoy a lot of what they read and they have rarely pointed me in the wrong direction, then I will likely click on that buy now button that's flashing at the bottom of the page and wait for the arrival of this new paragon. This book was getting all the right attention. Instagrammers were impressed. Apparently, the world building was clever, the characters were fun and well written, and the story made you want more instantly. So I had to wait 2 months. Was it worth the wait? For me, yes. This year, so far at least, I have read 75 books, and only 6 of those have earned a 5-star rating. There have been 4 that got close, but only 6 hit the top tier. It's not that I consider myself a harsh judge or anything, but for some reason, a book has to have everything I want in that particular moment to get the highest score. It has to make me laugh, cry, want more. That's not to say other books didn't achieve some of those things, they just weren't quite there. Despite being a romantasy novel, a genre that many feel to be insipid and watered down, the book covers themes that I feel are important to acknowledge. Odessa wants nothing more than to be seen. Her family ignores her. She longs for affection, for some kind of connection to other people. Throughout the novel, there are mentions of how she would hug her sister and baby brother in an effort to show them that she cared for them. It was probably more about the fact that she needed human contact. She was giving them what she so desperately missed in her childhood. With her mother long dead and her father a cold, power-hungry and callous man who ignored anyone who wasn't of any use to him and his kingdom, she had no choice but to try and make things work for herself. This need to belong is something that is often used against her. She is isolated, whether she's in Roslo or Triau, until she finds someone equally as in need of affection, Evie. I loved reading about this pair. In Evie, Odessa sees a kindred spirit, desperate to learn, desperate for affection, and the bond between them is beautiful to watch as it grows beyond that of stepmother and stepchild. The contrast between Evie and Odessa's relationship and Odessa's relationship with her own stepmother Margot is massive. Margot sees Odessa as a problem to be ignored, while Odessa sees Evie as a child to love, hug, and shower with affection. Seeing these differences, which only continue to grow as the relationship between the princess and the little girl becomes stronger, makes you feel even more sorrow for the girl Odessa wasn't allowed to become. Probably, though, the biggest themes in the book are those of trust and betrayal. Odessa, for all that she longs to be accepted, has to battle with her conscience once she's in Tura. She has been burdened with the responsibility of discovering the capital of the country, a city that many aren't sure even exists, as well as killing the mysterious guardian. Initially, she sees this task as an indicator of her father's trust. However, the longer she is in Triau and the more she grows to know the Turan people, the more she realizes that her father has tasked her with something impossible. These people have shown her more affection and kindness than her own family. They listen to her, sometimes with amusement and a few eye rolls, and acknowledge that she exists. Though she has had duty and responsibility pushed upon her since birth, these tiny acts of kindness and caring are enough to make her realize that perhaps things were not as they should be when she was living under her father's roof. The biggest betrayal comes at a moment when Odessa is at her most vulnerable. And though I would like to dig deeply into that moment, to do so would spoil so much for you. And as much as this sounds like a massive spoiler, believe me when I tell you, so far I have not given anything away. There are moments when I would love to have a spoiler-filled discussion, but come to me when you've read the book and believe me, I will talk a lot. In fact, please do message me when you've read this book. I want to talk with other people who have already gone on this journey. If you enjoyed Shield of Sparrows or want to read something similar, try these. Wow. Okay, so fantasy and romantasy with great world building. When it comes to fantasy, I have one 5-star read from this year that I want to recommend. The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson. Yes, the story of Nima and Cain is a chunky one, but honestly in my top 5 of this year without a shadow of a doubt. Hodgson's world building is incredible and the story had me on the edge of my seat for every single one of those 646 pages. Though I wasn't as impressed with the third in the pentalogy that is the Empyrean series, I would say that Fourth Wing is worth sinking your teeth into. I am sad that I didn't get as much out of Onyx Storm as many seem to, but the series is still worth a read. The Sparks trilogy by Kerry Law is a great one to pick up if you love dragons, strong female characters, and a story of love, betrayal, found family, and winning against all the odds. The first in the series, The Sky Riders, is incredible. Fast-paced, exciting, and well written. Definitely worth a read. Of course, if you think that I have missed anything off my recommendation list, please do let me know. But also remember, I have read some of the ACOTAR series, so don't. I can't recommend that personally because that has gone on my unhaul list, despite the fact I know many people absolutely adore it. It just wasn't for me. I said it was going to be a case of two for the price of one, and I am going to do my utmost to ensure that remains the way. Last time I spoke about a book that I couldn't stop thinking about. Another 5-star read that I fell in love with and cried over a lot. The Names by Florence Knapp. This week there were a few books I considered talking about. Some were really good, much anticipated reads that didn't disappoint. And then there was this one. I had heard good things and I wanted to believe them. Sadly, for me at least, that was not to be the case. For Whom the Bell Tolls by J.C. Lynn is a book that my cousin's daughter had on early order. She read it quickly, and from what she said, she loved it. I went in knowing little, but that it was apparently sort of based on TikTok videos that J.C. Lynn had produced and posted about a help desk in hell. For the purpose of puns, help desk here is spelled with 2 L's. The book itself is the story of Lily, who, in the first chapter, discovers that she has terminal cancer and is going to die. She has a very religious mother, and throughout her life, she developed questionable views about religion, God, and life after death. Upon dying, Lily discovers that the judgment she expected is not what she received. It is not as simple as the binary heaven-hell she was taught as a child, but layered systems of cosmic justice. Choosing universal judgment, she undergoes a fair, honest review of her life and is given a personal paradise where she can live or exist until she decides whether she wishes to be reincarnated or not. Like many other fantasy novels I've read of late, this is another tale of found family. And while initially I loved reading about Lily and her foster child Sharky and their friends, I hate to say it, I really do, but I grew bored relatively quickly. In the beginning, I found Lily a character for whom I developed strong feelings. I felt awful for her plight, a woman in her early 30s struck down with cancer and unable to afford treatment. But the further I read into the book, the more disinterested I became. I enjoyed the start of her relationship with the demon Beleth, the son of Lilith. But again, the more I read, the less I wanted to read. I'm not sure if it was the fact that this book felt a little bit Beauty and the Beast in hell, but not quite, or if it was just truly too long. But about halfway through, I very nearly DNF'd. And if anybody knows me, they'll know it takes a great deal for that to happen. The writing was okay, but the characters just seemed to lose something the further into the story I got. We have this massive battle, but it's never made clear what the battle is about, or who it's even between. I wanted to get off the bus and walk to the next book. I can't really say I'm happy that I finished it, but at the same time, had I not done so, I wouldn't be in a position to say, in my mind at least, that it wasn't what I wanted, nor was it what I expected. Not exactly a massive thumbs down, but I think that there are many better fantasy novels out there, especially right now. This book has now been placed on my unhaul shelf, sadly. I'm sure that there will be many other readers out there who will enjoy it much more than I did. Well, that's it for this week, and thank you so much for listening to my blathering and babbles. If you're enjoying the show, why not share it with friends or family and leave a star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you listen. You can find me on Instagram at beingbookish.pod, on X at being_bookish, and on TikTok, where I've been a little bit lax of late, time is just escaping from me, at beingbookish_reviews. Prefer reading? Head to beingbookish.co.uk for some spoiler-free reviews, my 2025 reading tracker, and all the links in one place. Until next time, this is me saying farewell.